As I was saying again, that's right. I was talking about what I was going to do in the situation. Well, I would have called a taxi to come and take me to the police station. I would have been well prepared. You know what I was going to do? With my hammer, I was going to break into the local police station. That's correct. And the only thing I wanted to get my hands on would be all their weapons. Yeah, a semi-automatic weapons. Would you believe that? So that I can take them out. Then I would have to break into a police car, that's correct, with all these weapons that I've got, and then drive down here and take them out. That's correct. Now, instead of calling the police, because they're going to take for ages, that's correct. I mean, I've got a little button on my remote that I can just press, and next thing you know, the police will come. That's correct. But if every time I complain, online and so forth, and all they do is ignore me, man, I'm not going to take any chances. If somebody's going to take me out, and if somebody's going to try and break into my house, I'll be calling the taxi. I'll get in a taxi, go down to the local police station with my hammer, and I'm going to break into the police station, smash all the front door to get in, so I can get into some sort of guns or whatever compartment where they keep all their guns and ammunitions and whatnot. And then that's it. I'm going to come into the police car. There are police cars outside at the back in the yard. And then I'm going to come and take them out. That's correct. Personally. Now, do you see how far these people have pushed this so-called noble, what a sovereign head can do? That's correct. Man, only military type people can do that. That's correct. But you see, it's a life and death. It's a life and death situation. I mean, I didn't know what else was I going to do. I mean, a hammer ain't going to be able to, take out 15, 20 of them. That's correct. So that's why police station, police sergeant, that's correct. If I were you, yeah, so now you know, I would break into the police station. That's correct. And only because I got a right to protect myself, let alone my immediate family. That's correct. And that's about the only place where they keep all the guns and whatnot. They're bound to have some sort of weapons in there. Pepper spray, batons, that's correct. That's correct. Except the alarm will set off. That's exactly what I want to do, set off the alarm. That's correct. Now, do you know how some people get pushed? That's right. Now, I'm completely pushed to the edge. But thank goodness, that was only just what I thought, well, that's a backup plan. But thanks, Archangel Warren. That's correct. I'll definitely take that into account. That's correct. That if one day I should need to kill somebody or protect myself, that's about the only closest place I know that is full of weapons. That's correct. That I'm going to enjoy for the first time. Wow, it's about time we did take these people out. Because after all, they don't need to be here. That's correct. If all they do, they're going to try and come in my flat. For what reason? For what purpose do you need to do that? You got plenty of whores. You got plenty of women. That's correct. You do not need to conquer me. Oh, hell no. I will kill you. Like I said, my husband is waiting for me in the States. And he doesn't want any of you to get in the fucking way. That's correct. And we don't need to live here in your fucking country. If you're going to keep on targeting me for no good reason, that's right. So you deserve to be disbanded and dissolved. Thank God I don't own a gun. That's correct. Yeah, how would you feel if every time I keep shooting and I need to? Because they're maniacs. I don't know why they need sex from you. They don't need sex from you. Sergeant at the police station, you better do your job. That's correct. Otherwise, you could be replaced by another sergeant, which is always the case when they don't do nothing. That's correct. Now, what else am I going to talk about? When I think about what happened that's correct. You see now what women like myself have to do to protect ourselves? Alarm system, and it still gets hacked into? This might be on a small scale where this son of a bitch next door thinks he can, do what he does here and get away with it. Like hacking into my how dare? Hack into my so-called cell phone to disarm my so-called alarm system. That's correct. So that they could come in and play that's not a practical joke. You're asking for the fucking fucking death penalty, but you obviously want a gun in your mouth, and let alone on your forehead, to blow your brains out. That's correct. You're asking for the death penalty. We got a right to kill people like that. Because after all, they're just pests. There's no hope for them. They're not likely to enter any kingdoms. So I say, why wait now? Why give them any more extra years to be a menace and a pain in the ass and continue on torturing you, let alone targeting you? But you could just bury their asses, that's great, and put them to rest. Now, what was the other thing? The reason why they should be disbanded and dissolved. Now, you see how they've been hacking into my system here? Not only my alarm system, it's my my internet network, that's correct, my mobile phone, my laptop, everything at this address is all contaminated. You know, my cell phone cost me $1,299, that's correct. And now the fucking phone is completely fucked up. My laptop cost me money, that's correct, over a hire purchase loan of $3,000 that I'm still trying to pay for. And now it's completely fucked up as well. It's been completely hijacked by the son of a bitch next door and his so-called, and the other son of a bitches. That's right. That's the other thing I noticed there at the birthday, this double 70th birthday of my cousin. What else did I notice? Well, my brand new phone I got, that's correct, at that time, was left where? Now, I think the birthday would have been at the 11th. I think the birthday was the 11th of August, 2018. Because my honey, or my so-called beloved honey bun here, yes, Mr. Warren Baker, you were murdered on the 23rd of what? September 20, that's correct, 2018. Anyway, I noticed there at the birthday as well, I had my brand new cell phone here that I'm still using. That's almost, $1,300, the value of my property, that's correct. And I was just leaving my phone there on the table, like you usually would leave your phone there. And I must have popped up somewhere, probably the bathroom or somewhere. And I took my eye just for a moment away from my cell phone that was left on the table. And the next thing you know, I couldn't find my phone. I couldn't find my brand new phone. I thought, I wonder what's happened to my brand new phone. I wonder where it's gone to. And at that time, I was just really worried now. That's correct. Well, Lord and behold, I soon found out that Olivia, my cousin's so-called sister, that's correct, had actually taken my phone somewhere into the kitchen. I mean, light fingers, sneaky, that's correct. Man, their family is definitely a mobster family. Why did she need to take my cell phone? That's correct. Probably they wanted to be nosy with my so-called new property gadget. And that's when I also discovered that I know that my cousin has got the skills of hacking, like the son of a bitch next door. They all know how to hack into so-called digital devices. And that's when I suddenly realized that my cousin's side of the family are a strange family. That's correct. But of course, I didn't see it then. That they actually like being nosy into your so-called family's private, conversations. Otherwise, her sister wouldn't take your phone unless there's a reason why. And, during the time that I was texting Mr. Willow, that's correct, I noticed a lot that the son of a bitch next door and even everybody else inside this building seemed to have been reading my private texts, that's correct, on my cell phone, because this son of a bitch next door always seemed to react somehow violently for some odd reason, that's correct, as if he owns my so-called cell phone, let alone my private text, let alone me! The son of a bitch, you deserve the death penalty! And then what happens? And then just most recently, that's correct, I go out, I'm just going into the center, that's correct. What do you call it? Just recently, I went out. Well, last Thursday, no, it was last Thursday that I went out. On the 10th, that's correct. And I was heading from, going past the Fishtown car park, crossing over to go to the road, that's correct, on Pine Avenue, opposite St. Joseph Church. And I heard the roar of some massive It sounds like a Harley bike. That's correct. And I knew right away what that meant. And I said, oh shit, not this again, not this again, not this again. I'm not putting up with this. That's correct. Because that sound only means, and not on the 10th of March. That's correct. So the so-called son of a bitch that rode, that's right, on his bike, drove past. And the guardian angel and the archangel went berserk. That's correct. And they started screaming and yelling at him to get off the bloody road. That's correct. And to piss off, blah, blah, blah. I guess it's because I have come to understand their so-called protocols. Naturally, they don't teach me. They don't speak to me. They don't text me either. But I just pick up. I've got a gift. I'm an ordained natural noble pastor. That's correct. And I knew right away that if we didn't say that and if we didn't react the way that we did, we probably would have been dealt to. That's correct. But it looks like he was sealing the death penalty. How dare! Man, you can do that to my cousin's side of the family. Why don't you do that to my cousin? Why don't you do that to your own fucking member? You don't have a right to give me the death penalty. Excuse me. That's correct. I'm not one of your slaves and I'm not one of your members either. So you shouldn't be, doing that kind of thing. But I have had just about enough of it. That's correct. So I hope that doesn't happen again, because I'll scream and yell again. Only the next time, pray to God, I don't have a gun, because I will shoot you dead. That's correct. You do not do that to a sovereign head, and you do not dare. That's correct. Behave that way. Because my understanding was he must have come down from the Main Street Road and knew very well I was going to cross Pine Avenue. That's correct. He knew precisely that I was going to be there at that very moment. That's correct. So if he was going to go on Queen Street, the Queen Street where so-called Kentucky is, that's right, KFC and the rest of it out there, and Countdown, he could have gone up the way up Main, that's right, Main Street, and then on to King Street, and then through the back down the other way, the Queen Street. So I was thinking, he had to do that. He just had to. Oh, no. He just had to go past you. That's correct. You see what I'm talking about? Oh, but then I remember the 12th of February. In the early morning, about 10:30, I was heading along Gibbon Street. That's correct. And it was just, I think, in between the so-called, the four crossing, where McParlin, that's right. It's like, there's the, that's right, McParlin, the crossing, like a four cross right there on McParlin. And you were walking along Gibbon Street. And what do I see? And this is the 12th of February. Well, I wouldn't go out on the 13th the next day. But again, what did I see? There's three, they look like three members of the Red Demon. That's correct. There was one riding at the back and two in the front. And they were riding in the middle of the road. That's correct. And they just overtook some others, some other pedestrian or some other car. That's correct. And I don't know what they're up to, but it looked like it's exactly what this guy was doing on the bike. That's right. Just recently on the 10th of March. So they were sealing something. That's great. Applying their harmful protocol. And I said, how dare. Thank God I don't throw rocks at them, let alone own a gun. Because I would just shoot you all. That's great. For doing that. You can do that to your own members or other members that they're part of your criminal underbelly. Well, but don't you do that to me, the sovereign head. That's correct. Don't you do that, because you're now going to be disbanded and dissolved for stalking and harassing. That's correct. They don't usually do that. No, they don't. But you got three of them riding past on their so-called bikes like it's obvious that they're up to no good. That's correct. Serious. That's correct. And I don't know why they need to target you. That ain't your property. Dream on. My husband is waiting. That's correct. Gosh, I didn't even like the fact that I have to even say that. Do that nobody? I would never want to have sex in this local township. Man, everybody would know. That's correct, especially this nosy Parker, these eavesdroppers. Nobody would. They would rather go to, to another country. But hell no. That's correct. We've got recording devices everywhere, let alone cameras. Let alone, I don't know, there are probably some hidden cameras, I don't know, or listening devices inside my flat that I don't know about. But the fact that the government of New Zealand actually allows these people to apply their harmful protocols, man, you guys, they should not be living inside this Housing New Zealand building. They're not here for tenancy. I'm sorry. Normal people don't stalk people, don't hack their digital devices. They do not enter their homes unlawfully, or they do not dictate to other tenants as well. These tenants they're nothing. They're more like terrorists. That's correct. They behave more like terrorists, and they behave like so-called horrible criminals of the worst kinds. That's correct. I'm sorry. We need some normal tenants. We need some normal tenants inside this building. We need some good tenants, not bad ones, not evil ones especially. All night they're thinking, they're up to no good. They're planning to do something to try and get into my flat, or planning for what to surprise me the next day, what they're thinking about. And you know what? You guys deserve the death penalty. That's correct. I don't give a damn who you are. You might be gangsters, that's correct, or monsters, but they still don't give you no right to behave the way that you do to somebody that is not even your property. That's correct. But if you're going to cross your boundaries, I'm sorry, we're going to be at war. But like I said, there's the police station down the road where there are ammunitions and there are guns. That's correct. And if I need to protect myself, or I need to take out somebody inside this building that is being stupid and crossing their boundaries, I will go there. That's correct. And get me a gun. That's correct. And what am I preaching about? Well, there's another thing you all need to know, especially my Knights and Chiefs of 150 Days War program. A lot of my preachings are what I've discovered are actually prophecies. They're actually prophecies, if not premonitions of what's to come in the future. That's correct. They are actually prophecies. And they actually align with the Bible. That's correct. Standards. I know, unreal. I guess as a Christian, when we've been baptized, I was baptized at the age of 20. When I had the seal of God printed, the 10 Commandments printed on my heart, that's correct, in my soul, well, I guess effectively now, if I'm an ordained national pastor that was ordained secret by God, then you can expect that everything that's going to come out of my mouthpiece is going to be from God. That's correct. Not from Satan. So that's all going to be prophecies. That's correct. That's what it means to be ordained. When you're ordained, that's correct. Then what you will speak about is prophecies. Not normal, ordinary. Those are not just illustrations. Those are actually prophecies. But of course, they're lay people. What do they expect? They're commoners. They don't know anything. And what's the other thing that I've learned about this so-called hacking and the stalking that's going on my digital devices here? I might be an individual. This might be just on a small scale where these criminals are able to hack into my internet network, hack into my Bluetooth speakers, hack into my so-called cell phone and laptop. But you imagine that they can actually disarm an alarm. That's correct. Using an app, hacking into your cell phone or your digital devices and getting your password. That's correct. So that means if your house have got those sort of electrical digital type kind of keys where you don't have a key but you have your fingerprint and whatnot to get into your house, I'm sorry, it's not safe either. It's not secure either, because these guys can hack into your digital devices and open the door, and next thing you know, they're inside your home. That's correct. Because they accessed your cell phone or your laptop, they've accessed that's correct. So they only need to disarm. And if they can disarm your alarm system, well, then they can enter your home without being detected and leave your home without being detected either. If they can disconnect my camera outside my door, which still needs to, I'm still going to wait for to be reconnected, then I'm afraid that they can do the same to any cameras, that security cameras that are at your homes or your businesses. So in other words, what the companies that owns so-called alarm system and things like that. They now have to create alarm systems that must be bulletproof. That you can't hack into it. They can't hack into it. That they cannot hack into it. They cannot even, they will have to create new cell phones, mobile phones, smartphones that that you can't hack into. Now, who is the company that's going to create digital devices where people can't hack into them? That would be wonderful. They would be wonderful to have a phone like that, let alone a laptop or computer where people can't hack into it anymore. It's bulletproof. It's bulletproof. It's it's not hackable, but it's bulletproof from hacking. That's correct. Would be nice. That'll be the next level of what the digital age have to create. That's correct. Excuse me. And what's the other thing? Oh, that's right. So what's been going on here with the hacking and the stalking of my digital devices? Now, the fact that these criminals can disconnect your cameras, your security cameras, and also that they can disarm your so-called alarm system so that it doesn't go off for them to get inside. Right. Has it ever occurred to you that one day they could plan a big heist? That's correct. Like the local supermarket or the Trentham camp, where they have a lot of weapons. And there's a storeroom there in the so-called Trentham camp. That's correct. And they can disarm any alarm system there and the cameras, and next thing you know, they're inside. That's correct. And they're there with removal trucks to take the whole lot to clean out the Trentham camp. But that's not likely to happen because they do have securities. And also, it's pretty secure. But, one of these days, if you've got an associate that works as a security guard there in the Trentham camp and knows all the codes to get into the Trentham camp and even to the so-called the storeroom and the weapons room, then I'm afraid the criminals will find a way to get in. That's correct. If one of those, if that man is a security guard, happens to be one of their associate, like Dennis, that's correct. I suddenly realized. Mr. Brainless Ass, that's correct. He knows all the codes of a lot of the facilities that he goes to, activate their alarms and do the security on. But he's an associate, you see. And one of these days, that's correct. If anything goes missing with those facilities and the Trentham camp, there can only be one person to blame, and that is Dennis. That's correct. Now, you see how serious that is? If he does security for any local supermarkets or any local organizations, that's correct, and he knows the codes, right? That's serious. That's why people like that should not work for any security organizations. And they shouldn't work either for Working Income or any other government organizations. Because one day they're going to plan a heist. They're going to plan one of the biggest heists. That's correct. Which might be to clean out the local Pack and Save supermarket just down the road. That's correct. Except, well, I suppose if they've got insurance, they can cover the whole lot. It's not a biggie. It's not an issue. But one day on a Christmas day, it's normally closed Pack and Save. That's correct. In the middle of right about past after midnight, when everybody's asleep, that's correct, or about 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 removal trucks drove in there. And you also had about 30 cars parked in the so-called car park. And of course, anyone who was going past might be thinking, they must be doing stock taking. Yeah, but stock taking on Christmas Day, eh? So what happens is they got the code to get in, but they disarm, that's right, disconnect all the cameras and disarmed the so-called alarm system. Next thing you know, all the criminals were inside and they were loading stuff. They cleaned out all the aisles, that's correct. You name it, that's correct. And even the food store that was back in the storage room, it was all taken on the truck. It was all loaded. And it didn't take long. In fact, it wasn't even an hour. Under 30 minutes, that's correct. They'd obviously organized it really well, that it was like the biggest. So now, instead of robbing banks, they were robbing the supermarket, that's correct. And it just was one of those sophisticated heists. And the next thing you know, the 3 trucks were driving around, the 30 cars disappeared, and the next morning, the staff at Pick and Save came to check up on the, came to work. And what did they do? What did they see? Holy moly, what happened? Nothing. Somebody had just cleaned out the supermarket overnight. And that's how stupid they were. That's correct. Because remember, we got over 70 organizations now. So if you only need to put, and one of those organizations, they're probably over 10,000 now. You only need 1,000 of them. That's correct. Not even 1,000, maybe 100. Not even 100, maybe 50 or 40. And you clean out the supermarket. But what would happen if it's not just the supermarket, but the weapons room there in the Trentham camp? That's correct, one day. On those days it's a holiday. That's correct. Well, I hope you can understand now where I'm coming from, why some criminal organizations need to be disbanded and dissolved. That's correct, because that's the only way it's going to stop them from applying their harmful protocols, the criminal protocols. That's correct. But also, if you want to protect yourself, and if you want the harms and the tortures to stop, that's the only way. So my plea again to all my Knights and Chiefs is file your restraining orders. Only if you're a victim, and if you've become a target and you've got proof to say that yes, you have been a target, and you have been a victim, and you have been harmed by their so-called, members and their associates, right? Right. So that's all I've got to talk about now. Well, you can see now why they seem to ignore your complaints, but I'm sorry. When I come to court, I'm going to expect disbandment, dissolvement, shut down completely, and transfer it out of this region of the country. Otherwise, and then I'm going to leave your country peacefully because my husband is waiting. That's correct. My husband has given me the opportunity, the time to get all your rubbish and get all your so-called issues sorted out in this country before you come to my country. That's correct. Because I'm not dealing with it. And it's not going to follow you either, especially in Rhode Island. But thank God I'm going to file an asylum application now. That's correct. To get the hell out of this so-called, shithole, but junkyard. But this so-called, what we call it, the Zooland. Planet of the Apes, that's correct. But they just can't seem to stop targeting you. That's correct. There's something wrong. There's something definitely wrong about these people. The way they're wired up, and they're the maniacs, all right. But see how they seem to do all this sealing of stuff at you when you're out there. I'm thinking, hey, you don't do that to my cousin, let alone any of my other rallies. Why do you need to do that to me? That's correct. Do I look like I've got a sign on my head? Do I look like there's a carving somewhere on my body that says, hit me again. That's great. Bring it on. I feel like I'm like one of those targets that it's either, let's just see if this pink elephant is going to react or respond. Let's just see let's say we're going to get today. That's correct. If we cross her, that's correct. Despicable, disgusting indeed. Well, there you go. I hope you've learned as much as you had on this day. That's great. Oh, what day is today, honey bun? The 12th? The 12th. The 12th of March. Let's hope I'm going to make it to the 29th of June, 2020. But at the rate we're going, somebody out there isn't going to make it to the 29th of June, 2020. Right. You all have a nice, blessed Saturday. Keep out of trouble, my Knights and Chiefs. As for my Snow King Club congregation, run away if you see any pest, any rat bags. Run away. You don't ever want to talk to them, and you don't ever want to say anything nice to them. That's correct. Give them the silent one treatment. And you'll live longer, and you'll thank me for it. Right. In the name of the Father, of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen.